This is a tutorial on a buyer representation agreement. It's a 3-page proprietary form that I will show you how to fill out. I'll make it available publicly. So for a fillable form for Cavour agents, you'll use the online forms manager to fill this out, but I will link in the description to a PDF that you can download. And if you're looking for the California Association form, well, I do a separate tutorial and I will link to that in the description. But here we're talking about forms where agents that aren't realtors can access and use. And this is the buyer representation agreement, which is required by law in California as soon as practicable and no later than the time you make an offer. So if you're writing an offer, this form should already be done. Now, this form's nice and simple, so I'll go through it and show you how to fill it out. You'll start by putting the buyer names up here, the name of your brokerage here. Now, if the buyer's an individual, you can leave this alone. If it's an entity, just check the appropriate box. Representation period for individual buyers, it can't be more than 3 months. Now, if it's a corporation, an entity, of course, you can go longer than that, but let's say it's an individual buyer, so I just have this period just under 3 months, but you do not want this to exceed 3 months. Where is your coverage area? Now, it should be something within reason. Don't put the entire state. You want it broad enough to protect you, but not so broad as someone could contest it and say there's no way that agent could have reasonably serviced that entire area. They were trying to lock me in. So I just put Orange County. It's a relatively smaller county for California. And so you'll just want to put in or cities or even an address right here. Now we get down to compensation. So you'll want to start at a higher number because you can always reduce this, but it's hard to make it go higher. So I put 3%, put 2.5 or 3% of the acquisition price. If it's a flat fee, put it there. If it's a little of both, put it there. If it's something totally different, put it there on line 4. But the simple, typical way to complete this is to put a percentage here. Now, additional terms, this is auxiliary space in case there's something else you want to add that hasn't already been added. Do not put something like the seller will pay or commission is only what the seller will pay. You cannot do that. Commission must be a definitive amount. You must have an amount in here. If the buyer won't commit to that, you don't have a buyer walk away from that client. Additional terms should not contain anything that relate to the commission. All right, now we get down to type of representation. Now, if nothing's checked, it's automatically exclusive. And your client may want to see non-exclusive. That's fine. Maybe they want to work with another agent. Maybe they're concerned that they might not be able to contact you and they want to have the ability to contact another agent. The only difference between exclusive and non-exclusive is that if you're exclusive and they run off with another agent, you still get paid. Basically, you get paid no matter what. And non-exclusive means they can work with as many people that they want to. All right, both parties initial, so you as the agent and then the buyer. And this explains the representation period, explains compensation terms, the difference between exclusive and non-exclusive. Now, keep in mind, when your buyer says, well, so obviously buyers are going to ask about this commission that they're paying. One thing that you need to tell them when you have that conversation is that any compensation paid to the broker from the seller, and you can show them where on a purchase agreement you're going to ask for the seller to pick up the tab for the buyer and relieve them of the obligation. But again, it says here, compensation paid from the seller or any other party, a home builder, whomever, that will be credited against the amount due from the buyer in this agreement. And it says it right here that anything that you're paid from elsewhere relieves them of their obligation. If a buyer pushes back on this, you don't have a client walk away. Buyers have it good. They're hiring a professional with nothing out of pocket to go and work on their own dime. And there's a very, very, very high chance the seller is going to pick up the buyer's tab, the commission in the end. So buyers have no room for complaining. All right, it continues on. And it basically just describes terms in case you need to know more information about it, because this explains more about termination. Who can basically, either party can send a written notice to terminate, but what I'm saying is there's auxiliary text that explains all the terms of this agreement. We come to the third and final page. Protection period. Now, this is an important clause to protect real estate professionals, and it says it basically by default within 30 days of expiration or even termination, if the buyer proceeds on a purchase in which you acted as the agent, you performed broker services, you opened up the property, you showed the property, and it tells you right here. So a buyer goes and sees a property, and then this agreement, it expires, or the buyer cancels. Fine, but you're protected for 30 days after the expiration or cancellation, so that if the buyer does in fact buy that property that you showed to them, you still get paid. And you can write in 90 if you want. You can write in 120 if you really need to. I mean, 90 ought to cut it, but you get the idea. This is to protect you. Again, you're working on spec, in speculation that you get paid for the services that you rendered. All right, dispute resolution, mediation. The buyers can fill out their information here. You put your brokerage name, brokerage license number, your name, your signature, and your license number, and the address of your brokerage. And that's it. You have a 3-page buyer representation agreement, and you are all set. You are now in compliance with the requirement to have a representation agreement in place. Please look in the description for the links, and I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching.